The Napoleonic era is dominated by the figure of one man. His genius and his ambition are carved into the stone of history. But his empire was built on a foundation of anonymous suffering, a pyramid constructed from the bodies of millions of men just like you. Napoleon famously called this endless supply of conscripts a blood tax. To him, you were a resource to be spent. He is remembered as one of the great captains of history. You are remembered by no one. The true history of this era isn't found in the grand paintings of the emperor on his white horse. It's found in the unmarked graves that dot the landscape from Spain to the frozen wastes of Russia. It's etched into the worn-out sole of a soldier's shoe, written in desperate last letters that never made it home, and echoed in the silence of the forgotten soldier. His greatest battle wasn't for France, or for glory, or for the emperor. It was a desperate, daily struggle for one more sunrise, one more piece of bread, one more agonizing step on the long road home. A home that, for most of Napoleon's soldiers, would remain forever a distant, unattainable dream. But for you, there's no escape. There's no money for a replacement. Your family needs you on the farm, but the emperor needs you more. As you're marched away from your home, maybe in chains next to others who tried to desert before even seeing a uniform, you realize the first lie of your new life. You're not a volunteer. You're not a patriot rushing to defend the homeland. You are a piece of state property, a number on a ledger, a single soul being fed into the furnace of ambition. The posters promise glory, but the reality begins with the profound, soul-crushing loss of your own freedom. You don't belong to yourself anymore. You belong to Napoleon. Your transformation from man to soldier begins by stripping away everything that makes you you. Your civilian clothes, your last physical link to home, are taken away. In their place, you're handed a uniform and equipment that will become your new skin, your constant burden, and very likely, your shroud. At first glance, the uniform is iconic, even beautiful. The deep indigo wool coat, the white breeches, the tall, imposing headdress. It's the image of imperial power. But wearing it is a different story. The coat is made of coarse, cheap wool. In the blistering heat of a Spanish summer, it's an oven, trapping sweat and rubbing your skin raw. In the freezing winds of a Polish winter, it offers almost no protection, becoming a damp, frozen sheet that just sucks the warmth from your body. The white breeches are a logistical nightmare, impossible to keep clean on campaign and a constant reminder of the filth you live in. Then there's the shao, that famous cylindrical headdress. Made of felt and leather, decorated with brass plates and pom-poms, it's designed to make you look taller and more intimidating. In reality, it's just a heavy, uncomfortable burden. It offers zero protection from a bullet or a sword, but it's great at catching the wind, straining your neck, and making you a more visible target for enemy cannons. It is vanity, not practicality, and you pay the price for it every single day. But the most intimate instrument of torture is the one we started with, your shoes. Made by contractors paid for quantity, not quality, they are a soldier's curse. The leather is stiff and unforgiving. And there is no left or right, they are ambipedal, meant to be worn on either foot. The theory was you could rotate them for even wear. The reality was they never fit properly on either foot. The seams dig into your flesh, and after the first day's march, your feet are a mess of blisters. Within a week, those blisters become open, weeping sores, begging for infection. A soldier who can't march is a soldier left to die. Many a campaign was lost not to bullets, but to the slow, agonizing destruction of the army's feet. On your back, you carry your entire world. It's called le sac, and it's a beast. Its weight is immense, often exceeding 40 or even 50 pounds. Inside, you have spare shirts and shoes, if you're lucky. You have a greatcoat for the cold. A small toolkit for your musket. You carry your rations, a few pounds of hardtack biscuit, so hard it could break your teeth and often crawling with weevils. And you carry your ammunition, 60 rounds of lead balls and black powder. Everything you own is on your back, a constant, grinding weight pressing down on your spine, chafing your shoulders raw. And finally, your weapon. The Charleville Model 1777 infantry musket. It's your partner in battle, but a clumsy and demanding one. It's nearly 5 feet long and weighs over 10 pounds. It's a smoothbore flintlock, which is a fancy way of saying it's wildly inaccurate. Hitting a single person beyond 80 yards is pure luck. You aren't trained as a marksman. You're trained as a part of a machine. You load, fire, and reload with hundreds of other men, creating a wall of smoke and lead. That complex, 17-step loading process is drilled into you until you can do it in your sleep, because in the chaos of battle, fumbling a single step could mean your death. As you stand there, fully kitted out for the first time, sweating under the weight of it all, a horrifying realization dawns on you. None of this was designed for your comfort or survival. It was designed to look good on a parade ground and to make you part of a collective killing machine. Your uniform won't stop a bullet. Your shoes will cripple you. Your pack will break your back. Your gear isn't there to protect you. It's the burden you're expected to carry to your grave. Here's the great paradox of being a Napoleonic soldier. You join an army to fight, but you spend most of your time doing something far more boring, and yet, just as deadly. You walk. The war isn't a series of glorious battles. It's one long, unbroken, agonizing march, punctuated by moments of extreme violence. The march is the true test of the Grande Army, the furnace that burns away the weak, the unlucky, and the unprepared. A day begins before sunrise, in the cold, damp dark. A drumroll jars you awake, with no time to waste. You have moments to chew on a piece of stale biscuit, if you have any left, and maybe gulp some water from your canteen. Then, you fall into formation. The order is given, and you walk. For 8, 10, sometimes 12 hours a day. 15 to 20 miles is standard. A forced march could be 30 miles or more, a truly superhuman feat for a man hauling a 50-pound pack. The roads aren't paved highways. They're often just dirt tracks. When it rains, they become swamps of thick, sucking mud that pulls at your failing shoes and drains the strength from your legs. In the summer, they're clouds of choking dust that get in your eyes, your throat, your lungs. In the winter, they're frozen, rutted landscapes of ice that promise a broken ankle with every careless step. The greatest enemy on the march isn't a human foe, but your own body screaming in protest. Your back aches, your shoulders are raw, and your feet are a constant, throbbing agony. But beyond the physical pain is a deeper, more insidious enemy, hunger. The Napoleonic supply system was revolutionary for its time, but it consistently and catastrophically failed to keep up with the vast armies. Rations were irregular, then scarce, then non-existent. The official policy became living off the land. To the generals, this was a strategic masterstroke that let the army move faster. To you, the soldier, it has a simpler name, la maraude. It's a clean word that sanitizes the grim reality of what you have to do to survive. It means foraging, but really, it means pillaging. When the rations run out, you fan out across the countryside like a plague of locusts. You and your comrades descend on farms and villages, taking whatever you can find. You're not a liberator, if you ever were. You're a predator. You steal chickens, pigs, grain. You kick down cellar doors to find wine and potatoes. You terrorize the very people you're supposedly there to protect or subdue. You don't do it out of malice. You do it out of a desperate, gnawing hunger that eclipses all morality. You eat things that would turn a civilian stomach, unripe fruit that gives you dysentery, half-rotten vegetables, and on the most desperate campaigns, like the retreat from Moscow, there were even isolated reports of men eating each other. This diet of stolen, often spoiled food, combined with filthy drinking water from ditches, opens the door to the army's greatest killer, disease. You rarely bathe. Your uniform is a habitat, crawling with lice, which you and your comrades grimly call les totos. You spend hours picking them from your seams, but it's a hopeless fight. These lice aren't just disgusting, they carry epidemic typhus, or camp fever. It starts with a headache and a fever, then a rash, and soon descends into delirium and death. It sweeps through the ranks like wildfire, killing far more efficiently than any cannon. Dysentery, the bloody flux, is just as common, leaving men so weak from dehydration that they just lie down by the side of the road and wait to die. You see it every day. men falling out of the column, their faces pale and gaunt. They collapse from exhaustion, from hunger, from a fever that has finally broken them. The army doesn't stop for them. It can't. To stop is to die. So you march on, steeling yourself, refusing to look at the faces of the men you're leaving behind. You know that more of your comrades will die on this endless road than will ever even see a battlefield. The campaign itself is the war, and its primary weapon is attrition. And then, after weeks, maybe months, on the march, the day finally comes. The enemy is near. The air itself feels different, charged with a tense, electric energy. The night before a battle is all about quiet rituals. You clean your musket until it gleams, knowing it will be fouled after the first shot. You sharpen your bayonet. You write a last letter home, the word stilted and inadequate, trying to say a love that feels a world away. You give it to a friend, with the promise that if you fall, he'll see it sent. He makes the same promise to you. You try to sleep, but sleep is filled with fragmented nightmares of what's to come. You're woken in the pre-dawn dark. The mood is a strange cocktail of terror and grim resolve. Some men make jokes, their humor black and brittle. Others are silent, faces drawn and pale. You're given a double ration of brandy, the raw spirit burning a trail down your throat. It's meant to steady the nerves, but it only makes your heart beat faster. Then, you hear it. It starts as a low, distant rumble, like far-away thunder. But it grows, steadily, into a deep, gut-wrenching roar that seems to come from the earth itself. This is the Grand Battery, the artillery, beginning its work. It's a sound that hits you like a physical blow, shaking the air in your lungs. The veterans call it cannon fever, the psychological bombardment before the physical one. It's designed to break your spirit before you even advance. You see men who've been through this a dozen times trembling uncontrollably. Then comes the order. Advance! The drums begin their rhythmic beat, a sound designed to keep you in step, to turn thousands of terrified men into a single, moving thing. You march forward, shoulder to shoulder, so close you can smell the sweat and fear on your comrades. You are not an individual, you are a cog in a great machine of flesh and blood, advancing into a storm of steel. The air fills with thick, acrid black powder smoke. It stings your eyes and chokes you. Soon you can see nothing but the backs of the men in front of you and a swirling grey fog. The noise is a deafening, continuous chaos, the roar of the cannons, the crackle of thousands of muskets, the high-pitched whistle of cannonballs overhead, and the screams of the men who are hit. You're ordered to halt, to form your line. The command rings out, make ready. Present. Fire. On instinct, you raise your musket, point it at a wall of smoke that you know holds other men just like you, and you pull the trigger. The weapon kicks back violently. You immediately begin the 17 steps to reload, fingers clumsy with adrenaline, fumbling with the cartridge. You tear it open with your teeth, pour the powder down the barrel, ram the ball home. All the while, men are falling. A man to your left disappears with a wet thump as a cannonball tears through him. A man to your right screams, his jaw shot away. You can't stop. You must reload. Maybe the enemy cavalry charges. The cry goes up. Form square. Your neat line dissolves into a frantic scramble to create a bristling hedgehog of bayonets. This is the ultimate test of discipline. You see a wall of horses and steel thundering towards you, the ground shaking. The terror is absolute. You plant your feet, angle your musket, and pray the line holds. If the lines get close enough, the final horror begins, the bayonet charge. The order is given, and you run forward, screaming a raw, primal cry. This isn't killing from a distance anymore. This is intimate, brutal, medieval. You're face to face with the enemy, seeing the whites of his eyes. There's no thought, only a desperate, animal instinct to kill or be killed. The clash of steel, the grunts of effort, the sickening feeling of your bayonet sinking into another man's body. Battle isn't glorious. It isn't heroic. It is a chaotic, terrifying, and profoundly dehumanizing experience. It's a sensory overload of noise, smoke, confusion, and death. Your survival from one minute to the next isn't a matter of skill or bravery, but of pure, dumb luck. And if you're unlucky enough to be wounded, you're about to enter a new circle of hell, one that's in many ways worse than the battle itself. The cannons fall silent. The last musket shots fade away. The battle is over. But for thousands, the suffering has just begun. As dusk falls, a new and terrible soundscape rises from the field. It's the sound of the wounded. A chorus of thousands of voices, crying out in pain and despair. Some scream for help. Some moan for water. Many, delirious, cry out for their mothers. The field is now a vast, open-air morgue, littered with the dead and the dying. If you're one of the unlucky ones, your ordeal starts with the wound itself. A lead musket ball doesn't make a neat hole. It flattens on impact, tearing a wide, ragged path through flesh and muscle. It shatters bone into splinters, carrying pieces of your dirty uniform deep into your body. A saber cut lays you open to the bone. A cannonball wound is often indescribable. Surviving the initial wound is just the first challenge. Now you have to get help. There are no dedicated medics to retrieve you. You rely on your comrades to carry you to the rear, if they can. More often, you're left to lie on the field for hours, sometimes days, among the dead. If you are found, you're thrown onto a crude cart, where every jolt sends waves of fresh agony through you. Your destination is the field hospital. Hospital is a generous word. It's usually a commandeered barn or a church, chosen for its size, not for medicine. The scene inside is a vision from hell. The floors are slick with blood and covered in dirty straw. Hundreds of men lie packed together, their groans and screams creating a constant, horrifying din. The air is thick with the metallic smell of blood, mixed with sweat, filth, and the first hints of rot. The surgeons, even skilled men like the famed Baron Lare, are fighting a war they can't win. They work with terrifying speed, moving from one man to the next. They have no concept of germs or infection. A surgeon might wipe his bloody scalpel on his apron before moving to the next patient, unknowingly passing deadly bacteria from one wound to another. For a severe limb wound, there is only one real treatment: amputation. If your arm or leg is shattered, it has to come off, and fast, before gangrene sets in. There is no effective anesthetic. You're given a large swig of brandy and a lead bullet to bite down on. You are held down by several strong men as the surgeon gets to work. You are fully conscious as you feel the knife slice through your skin and muscle. You hear the high-pitched, grating sound of the surgical saw cutting through your bone. The entire procedure, in skilled hands, might take less than a minute. It is the longest minute of your life. Your limb is tossed onto a growing pile in the corner. The wound is cauterized with a hot iron or boiling tar to stop the bleeding. The pain is so immense that many men simply die of shock right there on the table. But even if you survive the sore, your greatest enemy is still to come: infection. In these unsanitary conditions, gangrene and tetanus are rampant. Your wound, dressed with unsterilized linen, is an open invitation for disease. You watch helplessly as the flesh around your stump begins to turn black and smell foul. A fever sets in. You survived the battle, you survived the surgery, but you die days later from an enemy too small to see. For every soldier killed on the battlefield, at least 2 or 3 more died later from their wounds. Your survival was never a sure thing. The butcher's bill for Napoleon's glory was paid here, in the bloody straw of the field hospital. There are wounds that no surgeon can see and no amputation can fix. The war is fought across the landscape of Europe, but it leaves its deepest and most permanent scars on the landscape of the mind. Your body might survive the campaigns, but your soul will be forever maimed by what you have seen, what you have done, and what you have endured. The psychological toll begins with the constant, grinding exposure to death. It's not just the violent death of the battlefield. It's the slow, mundane death on the march. You walk past the bodies of comrades who collapsed from exhaustion, lying unburied by the roadside. You pass through towns ravaged by typhus, the smell of death hanging in the air. This relentless intimacy with mortality numbs a part of you, but it also plants a seed of horror deep inside you that will never leave. To cope, you rely on the bonds of camaraderie. The men in your squad become your brothers. You share your last biscuit with them, you cover them when they sleep, you share a dark, gallows humor no civilian could ever understand. This brotherhood is the only thing that keeps you sane. But often, it's not enough. The human mind can only take so much. They didn't have a name for it yet, we'd call it PTSD, but the condition was everywhere. Contemporaries called it nostalgia, but it wasn't simple homesickness. It was a profound, debilitating melancholy that could render a man unable to function. He'd stop eating, stop speaking, and just fade away. Other times, it was simply called madness. You see it in the eyes of your fellow soldiers. The 1,000-yard stare of a man who isn't really there anymore. You see men burst into fits of uncontrollable rage or weeping. You hear them screaming in their sleep, reliving the terror of a cavalry charge. The memories are relentless, the face of the man you killed, the sound of your friend crying for help as he bled out next to you. The army has little sympathy for this. A man suffering a mental collapse is seen as a coward. The only escapes are desertion or death. Desertion is a constant temptation, but the penalty, if caught, is being shot by a firing squad of your own comrades. Suicide is also common, though rarely recorded. If you are one of the lucky few to actually survive and return home, you find that the war has come with you. You are a stranger to your own family. They can't understand what you've been through. A slamming door can send you into a panic. You're haunted by nightmares. You came home, but you left a vital part of yourself behind on the battlefields of Europe. The cannons have fallen silent, but the war inside your head will rage on for the rest of your life. So this is the reality. You weren't a hero in a glorious epic. You were a survivor of a protracted nightmare. Your journey began not with a patriotic song, but with the dread of a forced lottery. Your uniform wasn't armor, but a gaudy costume for a tragedy. Your daily life was defined by the agonizing march, gnawing hunger, and constant disease. Your moment of battle was a descent into an industrial slaughterhouse of noise, smoke, and terror. If you were wounded, your reward was a filthy barn where survival depended on the speed of a saw and a prayer against infection. And if you made it through all that, you were left with a mind scarred by things that would haunt you until your dying day. The horrifying reality of a Napoleon soldier. Think about your shoes. Now, imagine they were made by the lowest bidder, from cheap, stiff leather. And imagine they were built to be identical, with no difference between the left and right foot. Now, picture wearing those shoes to march 20 miles a day, through ankle-deep mud in the spring and over frozen ruts in the winter. After just a few days, the real war isn't against the Austrians or the Prussians waiting over the horizon. The real war is the one you're fighting inside your own boots, against the raw, weeping blisters that have turned your feet into a bloody pulp. This was the first, and maybe the most constant, of the many horrifying realities for a soldier in Napoleon's Grande Army. It was an army where the legend was all glory, but the reality for the man in the ranks was one of guaranteed, relentless suffering. Of course, you've heard of Napoleon Bonaparte. You've heard of the dazzling victories at Austerlitz and Jena, of an empire that stretched across Europe, built by the finest army the world had ever seen. But the triumphs of an emperor are paid for with the blood of ordinary men. And for those men, the conscripts, the grunts, the grognards, the greatest battles weren't fought against enemy armies. They were fought against enemies you could never stick with a bayonet: starvation, disease, the biting frost, and the slow, creeping shattering of your own mind. This isn't a story of grand strategy or battlefield glory. This is the story of the man on the ground. This is your story. And it is a horrifying one. Before you're a soldier, you're a farmer, a baker, or a blacksmith's son in a quiet village somewhere in rural France. Your world is small, defined by the church steeple and the turn of the seasons. But the emperor's ambitions are large, and they require fuel. That fuel is you. One day, the decree arrives. All unmarried men between 20 and 25 must be registered for conscription. The official name is the Jordan Law, But in the villages, it has a simpler, more honest name, the blood tax. The day of the lottery is a day of absolute dread. The whole village gathers in the main square, a grim mockery of a festival. The mayor, a man who's known you since you were born, stands before a wooden urn holding the names of the village's sons. Your palms are sweating, your heart is a frantic drum against your ribs. You pray to a god who seems very far away. The mayor reaches in, his face a mask, and pulls out a small, rolled-up piece of paper. He clears his throat, and your name echoes across the silent square. In that single moment, your life is over. The life you knew, anyway. The shock is physical, the world seems to tilt. Your mother lets out a wail of grief that's instantly recognizable. It's the same sound mothers are making all across the empire. You've been chosen. But there's an alternative, a cruel twist of the knife that highlights how unjust this all is. It's called remplacement, or replacement. If your family has money, if they're wealthy merchants or minor nobles, they can buy you out of this fate. They can hire a substitute, a poorer man desperate enough to sell his life to save yours. The local lawyer's son pays a hefty sum to a landless laborer to take his place. This means the army isn't some meritocracy of patriots, it's overwhelmingly an army of the poor, the disenfranchised, and the unlucky. The rich man's son goes on with his comfortable life, while you, or the man paid to be you, marches off to die for a cause you barely understand. The desperation to escape the draft is a testament to its horror. Young men would go to gruesome lengths to make themselves unfit for service. They'd chop off their own index fingers so they couldn't pull a trigger. They'd break their own teeth so they couldn't rip open the paper cartridges for their muskets. They would do anything to avoid being fed into the great, grinding machine of Napoleon's wars.